Now, Rule 2 says a relative clause is a type of subordinate clause. I've been saying that from the beginning. Okay, subordinate meaning, again, dependent clause, a clause that cannot stand on its own. It doesn't have a full meaning on its own. So a relative clause is a type of subordinate clause. Okay, it describes a noun. In that unit 6 of the reading textbook, the Cambridge Checkpoint, I stressed on the use of a relative clause. I told you that relative clauses are used to give extra information about a noun in a sentence. I said that. So if you're giving extra information about a noun, you're most likely describing the noun. So we use relative clauses to describe a noun. In other words, to give extra information about a noun. Now it says uh, we use a relative clause beginning with who to describe a person or people. Of course, singular, plural, okay? We use who to describe a person or plural. We use a relative clause beginning with which to describe all nouns except people. So, who is only used for human beings, while which is used to describe all nouns except people. So, we don't use which for people, but what is a noun? Animal, place, thing, concept, all those nouns except a person, you can use which for them. So keep that in mind, all right? Do not use which for a person. Use which for all nouns except people, all right? Now let's see an example. It says, I'm watching a boy who is climbing a tree. I'm watching a boy. This boy is climbing a tree. So since I'm giving extra information about this boy, I'm describing what this boy is doing. I can't use which because we're told that which is used for all nouns except people, and boy is a person, so I use who. Okay, I'm watching a boy who is climbing a tree. Now the second example says I'm watching a squirrel which is climbing a tree. Now a squirrel is an animal, and they say use which for all nouns except people. A squirrel is not a person. A squirrel is an animal. Okay, so we use which. I'm watching a squirrel who's climbing a tree. All right, so you realize that it says it's giving extra info. It describes the noun, right? And another way to put it is it's giving extra information about the noun. Now you see the nouns that these relative clauses are giving extra information on, as in the first sentence, boy, and for the second, squirrel. Now let's see. The remember box says a relative clause beginning with that describes all nouns, including people. Very interesting. But I'll highlight this point from here, which says who describes people, which describes all nouns except people, that describes all nouns including people, so all nouns generally. All right, so let's see an example here. This is the architect that designed my house. The architect is a person. We're using that to describe it. Okay, this is the house that the architect designed. This is the house that the architect designed. So here, this relative clause is explaining the noun house, and the noun is not a person, and we're using that. Here, this relative clause is giving extra information about the architect. An architect is a person, and we're using that for it, or for the person, all right? Not it, sorry, for the architect. So you realize that the relative pronoun that is comfortably passing for both situations, a person and a thing. So all nouns use that. Now let's see. It says a relative clause, relative clauses are also known as adjectival clauses. Very, very important for you to remember this. Relative clauses are also known as adjectival clauses. If you keep this lesson in mind, when we get to the part of sentence structure where we're dealing with adverbial clauses or adverbial phrases, prepositional phrases, prepositional clauses, and all that, noun phrases, I don't want to confuse you, but when we get to that point, if you keep this in mind, then the lesson on the adjectival clauses will be very easy for you to understand. Okay, so the next part will be continuation from rule 3.